right, y'all, before we start, because some of y'all be tripping, under the advice of counsel, I got to add that the views, thoughts, opinions that are expressed on this podcast are mine and mine alone. They do not represent my employer. All right, let's go.
Because I was like, damn, do we really want to get into this discussion? Because if we get into this discussion right here, y'all.
All right, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Ridgemont Forest Finest, the podcast. And we are back with continuing our conversation with HISD teachers. We got our fan favorite back, Miss Muhammad. Hello, Miss Muhammad. Thank you for coming back.
Hey, thank you.
And then we got our new teacher, Miss Ebony here. Good morning.
Hey,
Good
how
morning.
are you?
All right. Thank you for coming. So we are talking today about so many people. I made a video the other day. And so many people with the new HISD compensation model. And so many teachers from other places were like, damn, these numbers look good. Could it be that bad? It ain't that bad. What if it's not that bad? It's worth the money. So talking to you guys and a couple of other teachers, I just kind of want to tell people the reality of how bad it is or what you are going to do for that money. Now, it's a special case having you here because your students, like, I don't know. I love my kids. My kids give me the warm and fuzzy sometimes and they're not making my ass itch. But I had about 5 or 6 of your babies reach out to me and beg me to talk to you. So shout out to you. You're doing something right at your campus. So
Teaching my kids.
teaching your kids.
Yeah, just teaching them.
That's it. So I'm happy that you're here. Thank you for coming because your kids are like, you got to talk to my teacher. Talk to my teacher. So thank you. Whatever you got going on over there. Thank you.
Thank you for
So
having me.
now the crazy part is that your kids reached out to me because they were worried about you. They were worried about you. Your kids were telling me how much stress they knew you were under, how you have changed from the teacher you were prior to this whole NES thing taking over, and they could just see that there's a difference in you. And so I just kind of want to talk to you about what's going on with you, other teachers, how has this whole model impacted the students on your campus, other teachers on your campus, and just kind of talk to us about it from a teacher's perspective. And then after I talk to you, I kind of want to compare, because even though you guys are both in HISD schools, you're both high school teachers, you're on 2 different models.
Yes.
And the disparities, the differences in what they got going on are crazy. And I just kind of want to let the world know the differences with 2 high school English teachers sitting here. So first, thank you again. And
Thank you for
let's
having
get
me.
into it. So let's talk about what your campus was like prior to the new superintendent coming over and the whole NES model coming, and what's going on now.
So I first want to start off by answering that question about people wanting to come over and say, like, all money is not good money, you know.
That part.
And if you got to sell your soul or you got to sell your mental health or anything else, then it's not worth it.
Right.
So to start off, when I came to my school, I was new. This is my 2nd year at this campus.
Okay.
And so when I came, I was new to HISD. And I will say, coming from the charter world, I was definitely happy to be somewhere where I had a lot more autonomy than I did before, and it was a lot less micromanaging. Like, I still got my observations, but the feedback that I would get from my appraiser at the time seemed very direct and strategic and was helping me grow. And I thought, like, oh, this is somewhere I could be for a long time. I was able to innovate in the classroom. I was able to do like amazing things with my students. And also I was able to just, you know, have the experience that I always wanted to have in education. And I worked really well with my principal at the time. You know, anything I wanted to do, I was able to sit down and say, like, this is my plan. And then we say yes, we say no, and we come to an example in between. So I would say, even though I did miss a couple days here and there, it was for like real emergencies last year. I never had one day my first year working on that campus that I didn't want to come to work. Wow. Like, I was excited every single day. I'm so used to having the Sunday scaries that when it went away, I didn't know what to do. It was to the point where, like, at the summertime, they're like, what are you doing up here? What are you doing up here? I'm like, hey, I'm getting ready for this. I'm getting ready for that. You know, I started to do more on the school and come onto the campus. And it just felt good, you know, to be close to my campus, but also to be close to the people on the campus and feel like this is somewhere I can work for a while. This is somewhere I can grow.
Let me, before you, what all, were you a sponsor of any clubs or activities prior to this?
Okay, so last year, I would say my first year, the biggest thing I did was my classroom was like the first like high school in the Reading with the Rapper program.
Okay.
The first, high school class and everything. So we were able to not only like teach children how to tap into their emotions, tap into their feelings academically through poetry, but we were able to put on a showcase at the end of that Reading with a Rapper session and give out beats to the students who perform, and like just really introduce them into poetry as an academic subject versus just something that you do in your free time, and pull that part of them out. I love that. And so I would say around the end of the year, I became a co-sponsor of the cheer team. And so we started to get things together for cheer, like at the end of last school year and through the summer. So I would be on campus constantly, throughout the summer. And, it just seemed like, oh man, I'm going to work summer school next year. Like, I don't hate it. Usually
You just wanted to be there.
Right. Like, usually it's like it's the end of the school. I got to go home.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm up here every day. Like, I might as well, really get integrated. And that was important to me. I wanted to sow my roots somewhere.
Wow.
You hear teachers say, oh, I've been here for this amount of time. I've been here for this amount of time. And then also something that happened to me last year is that I realized, like, oh my God, I really actually love teaching. Wow. Like, I love being in the classroom. Like, this is my desire. And so when they brought NES, and I was like, what? I could stay in the classroom and make this kind of money? Like, what? I could do the things that I want to do inside the classroom and work directly with students and make this kind of money. It felt enticing, it felt very enticing. And so we thought of it as like a new curriculum, like they're bringing something new. This is a new curriculum. And I was not a stranger to curriculum, having come from schools where the curriculum was not super scripted, but very well thought out, very well planned. I said, oh, this is not going to be a problem. Like, this is going to be great for all students. And that's how it was pushed. Let's just say toward the end of the summer, when it was time for in-service to complete, to be over, that the curriculum still never really came. Yeah, it was just like, we're on the final hour. We welcome to schools on Monday, and it's Friday, and I still don't know what I'm doing, and I'm told that I'm on this scripted curriculum. So I will say that wasn't the first time I figured out that it was different. But that's when I knew that I might be in trouble, that we might be in trouble. The people that did have curriculum, it was focused mainly on our English 1, English 2, and like algebra, those sort of EOC courses. Yeah. When I looked at their situation, I was like, oh, we might be in trouble. We might be in a little bit of trouble because the curriculum has not manifested. And then what has come is very sparse. Can be interpreted too many different ways, but then teachers were also told to like stick to the script. Okay. The script sucked.
So speaking about the script, I get random emails like all day from HISD teachers. Like, my inbox is hot. Someone sent me a very beautiful Canva presentation that they created showing like a flow chart almost even of what NES looks like, what an NES school day looks like versus what a non-NES school day looks like. And when I say it is timed to the T, it was the most inauthentic, unnatural thing I have ever seen. I've been teaching for 20-something years. I've never seen anything like that. It literally says from 9 o'clock to 9:04, they have to do this. At 9:05 to 9:30, they have to quiz or test. If they're not done, they're not done. Move on. 9:30 to 9:36, they have to do this. And there is no room for error. There is no room for wait, I don't understand. There is no room for nothing. And you better not get off script is what I'm talking about.
You better not get off script.
So let's talk about that. Tell me what a day looks like.
That's how it was at the beginning of the year. We were told, so let me start by saying the course that I teach is not it is an NES course, but because I'm at an NES school, but I don't have the scripted curriculum, right?
Because you're not tested.
Because I'm not a tested subject, right? But I'm still expected to do many of the things that NES, teachers do. Example, I am a environmentally conscious person. I believe in like trying to do my part. And one thing I believe in is accountability. So I've taken, unless students need it for accommodations, I'm pretty much a paper-free class, you know. I was delivered a stack of white papers that were first they started off with index cards, but when they couldn't keep up with the index cards, it became just half sheets of white paper. I was delivered a stack, and it was supposed to be for their demonstration of learning, for them to show their learning on their DOLs. And so I gave the stack back. I was like, oh, no, thank you. We don't need those. I do all my stuff online, and I don't want this all over my classroom. And so the students who delivered it took it back. Well, I got called in to chat with someone. It's like, and there was a little note on it that said, that I refused the papers, and I had to have a little conversation. It was a light conversation,
right?
And it was like, can you just keep them just in case? And so even though I was very overt about that, like, I won't be using this, like, I want students to be able to track their work. I need to be able to, students have accommodations. I need to be able to show parents what they did, pull things right at as I need them and keep up with things. I was forced to take the papers. And so I'm not an NES class, but I need a curriculum binder just like an NES teacher does. I need to do DOLs or like use the cards just like the teachers do.
Can I ask, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
Can I ask, just so the audience will know, explain what a DOL is?
So a DOL is a demonstration of learning, and it basically tells you, like, at the end of this part of the lesson, this is how you would demonstrate that you've mastered what I've taught you today. And so there are different ways to do it, but teachers are asked to use these cards so they can write, their DOLs on. And at one point, I thought that they were going to be picked up. But I don't know if that ever happened because eventually the cards went away and then the papers went away and a lot of the conversation has pretty much stopped. They are expected to have a DOL on the board, but whether or not the cards are being used, I think it's on a class-by-class basis or like a get caught or not get caught.
Right,
basis.
I got you, basis.
Yes. Right, yeah.
So now, are the DOLs like a TEK or they just some random questions that they answer, like essential questions? I'm trying to compare it to what we have in my school district. I don't know.
Well, I can kind of help her out.
Go ahead.
DOL, for the most part, look at it from this standpoint, an exit ticket.
Okay.
So instead of the exit ticket being at the end of the entire lesson, maybe it's at the end of this particular topic. Right. So we're reading teachers. You taught theme. After I get to teaching theme, here's my demonstration of learning. It can be multiple choice, open. I know on our campus it was like 10 different ways we can kind of do it. But it was still, like you said, it's time. Even though I'm at a non-ES school, I had to give it time. And in this 10-minute time bracket for us, I don't know, it might be different at your school, they had to answer questions. Right. It could be open-ended. It could be multiple choice or whatever. So within the 10 minutes time, I had to answer it. And based on this, I have to go down and grade, for example, 20 students' papers.
Right.
And after this 20 minutes, I'm supposed to go into maybe whatever else. Or for me, at a non-ES school, go back in and monitor and adjust my instruction. But right. That's what we had with this. And so that's how we did it at our school.
Okay.
So it's similar. And we had to have a deal regardless of what's going on. Even if I gave an assessment, here's the end of the unit assessment on theme and plot. I still had to have a DOL within that.
Right. And so at my school, I think the way that they use it, the way that I've seen it be used is that, like, at the end of maybe like a 45 minutes, of the lesson, as students, you put your dividers up, you complete your DOL. If you
a divider?
Yeah, like the
testing shields. You like the testing shields?
Because it's kind of like
Yeah. Oh, I know. I'm confused because
the same thing in my school.
It's just a
no.
So students. So it's supposed to determine what you get next in terms of teaching. So do you get a small group instruction in the class because you need more help, or do you get pulled out and get pushed higher in the lesson? And so at one point in the school year, I did see students traveling, periodically to different places.
Oh, okay.
But some of the students who were not passing the DOLs.
This is daily?
Yeah, it's supposed to be daily.
Yes.
Because I've been in. So here's the thing. I have to be honest. I don't have an NES classroom. But I have been in the classrooms where they do the pullouts. Sometimes the pullouts are happening. Sometimes they're not. So we have other spaces that have been made into classrooms. Like, for instance, the library is made into like pretty much, separate classrooms, and that's where students are supposed to go. So some days they're completely empty because students did not master what they were supposed to master. But I say this to say, when we first got there, that's how I knew we were in trouble, because the expectation was that we not do, beginning of the year building of activities, like, let's get your parents' name. Like, what did you do?
Yes.
Like, it was like, you can do that as you go along. You can do that in between if you have the time, but you start from instruction. You start with instruction on day one.
And I have to say the same thing.
Don't do the games. Don't do the, like, what did you do over the summer? Don't do the, like, what are your goals, about me type things. Like, start instruction from day one. And so for me, I was like, oh, well, I have a little bit of wiggle room. I will start instruction from day one, but it'll be some type of instruction that I get to know students with, right? I was allowed to do that. Many other teachers who were NES, who have NES, like those end of course exams, no, people were in their classes making sure they were hitting those marks.
And I would have to piggyback or agree with her in that even at a non-ES school, it was the same thing for us. We were told day one of in-service, when we come to your class from the first day of school, it's none of this goal setting, no growth mindset, no.
Right.
What is the instruction? So literally the first day of school was August 22nd. We had to have instruction going on. And if you follow the NES curriculum, because it's open to anybody, let me say this. The NES curriculum is open to any school, non-ES, NES, whatever. It was instruction. You were learning how to do something the first day of school. And of course the kids are like, what the hell? Like,
Right.
wait, I just met you. I don't even know you. Why I'm doing so literally first day of instruction, first day of school we had to do instruction. There was no on my campus, there was no get to know you. I don't even know your name. Here go your book, here go your paper, let's start doing the instruction.
So let's talk about, because I do want to talk about the pressure that is being placed on students, but I want to talk about first the pressure that's being placed on teachers when you're on campuses like this in a school district like that. We heard your story last week and the week before, Ms. Muhammad, but coming from a person's perspective that's actually on one of these campuses, what is the pressure like for a teacher?
So, it's interesting that you asked that, because a lot of the new rules and regulations that are being put into place, whenever we ask for rationale, that is the rationale. This is NES. This is NES. So I think a lot of people think that NES just is what happens in the curriculum, but it's the culture of the school as well, like how the students move from class to class, how the students behave in the cafeterias, how the students sit in the classrooms. A lot of this NES. Perfect example, I had tables in my classroom. I do a lot of bringing culture into the classroom. So I had hip hop themed tables, with different rappers like on them and things like that we had created with vinyl. Right before school started, I was asked to take my tables out because the superintendent wants desk in there, and they want students sitting side by side and partners. It was put to me as a suggestion, but it was very clear that this is what the
expectation.
Yeah, this is what the expectation was. So I said, okay, right? I went home one day. I came back the next day, and I promised the uniformity of rows and rows of 40 desks in my small classroom was driving me insane, because I need students to look at each other. I need students to collaborate. I need students to use the desk to do different assignments and move from place to place. And it just was very clear that it felt very orderly, but not in a way that was comfortable. So it's not just the curriculum, it's the culture of the school as well. And so I think the biggest message that is sent implicitly is that because your school is not performing well, right? Or because your school is potentially in a position to not perform well, you need a different approach in the learning environment, and implicitly that approach is punitive. It feels very punitive.
Absolutely.
Like the way they move in the halls, move to the right.
Talk about that. What does hallway movement look like? What does lunchroom movement look like?
So the lunchroom, I think the thing that has changed the most is the policy on how students interact with each other in the lunchroom. They're encouraged to speak to each other. And so because they're encouraged to speak to each other, there's a very strict policy put in place to ensure that they don't talk to they're not zoned out, and that they're able to speak to each other. And it's a no tech policy. There's no technology in the cafeteria. Okay. There's no technology in the cafeteria. And so in terms of how students are moved, they're at one point when they put this in place, I would say this was somewhere around October, there were a lot of people that were from our campus and not from our campus, sort of acted as a faux median in the hallway, screaming, walk to the right, walk to the right, walk to the right, walk to the right, And we were told as instructors to be at the threshold and push students to the right, not physically,
right.
but walk to the right,
them.
walk to the right, move to the right, move to the right. because I guess that made things faster. So the idea was that it needs more order. Like order is what is making the performance what it is. Supposedly,
Right.
That's what was implied. So it's been a lot of that. So like in the cafeteria, no, we're not texting, we're not checking on things, we're talking to each other, right? Or not doing anything at all.
What about reading? What about where are your novels? Are the kids allowed? Don't look at me.
What is
By those
that?
eyes.
What is
So,
a novel?
Okay, so one of the big things that went out in the media when the whole NES thing came along was that y'all's libraries were taken away. Then the libraries were now learning centers, aka detention centers.
Yes.
And so when I think when I think lunchtime, I'm going back to my campus. I try to make everything like, let me compare so I can gauge how to interpret and how to have these conversations. If the kids are, of course, we know tech as well in my campus, so that's not a thing. But yes, they're encouraged to talk to each other when they're not on silent lunch, like it's prison. But a lot of kids pick up a book and they just read. Like, I'm just going to eat this lunch my mom bought me and I'm going to read. So if I am a student that does not want to talk to people at lunchtime, can I pull out a novel or book at my leisure and read?
Well, you can, if you have one, you can pull it out.
But it won't be one that came
but it
from
won't
that
be
campus.
one. Yeah, like
there's none.
Yeah, like it won't be from the school library. Like you're not going to the library. Like I used to. I miss Friday independent reading days.
Yes,
where like students just
drop everything and read here.
Yeah, and so the campus that I came from. Before I was in HISD, like we did a lot of reading, and we even had anchor text and things like that, and we were encouraged. Like we knew the first like 15 to 20 minutes of class was silent independent reading, and students were reading. They were reading. That's not a thing. Like not only do we not have anchor text or anything like that, students are not. They're reading excerpts, star-driven excerpts, right? They're practicing for STAR, but they're not reading books per se. And
AI generated.
You're definitely
lessons.
Yeah, right.
Because y'all had that big fiasco in the
Listen.
news with that very, very sexually explicit text.
Listen, and they're not going to the libraries. They're not going to libraries. Like students are not spending time in the libraries
Because there's no library to spend
because
time
there's
at.
no libraries. I mean.
Oh no, sorry. There's a library.
There's a
room.
space,
There's a
and
space.
there are books there. But is there a person there at the desk to check things out? Are we using it to encourage culture? No, we're using it for like miniature classrooms, and like ISS purposes if need be. Like there are several things that it's being used for, but not a library. And so it was interesting because. And I was this kid, so I try my best to, to understand that. But I have a couple of bookworms, and when they bring it up, when my students are like, if they don't, I had a student bring up a really good point. It was like if we're not going to be able to check out books, then they need some type of like online system or like to connect us to libraries.
Yeah.
And why don't we have that? And I'm like, it might exist, but it's not readily available. It's something that I would have to look for and build it into the classroom culture. Whereas I think that in the English class, reading should already be expected. So I do have those bookworms that I'm like, hey, I love the book, we'll read it together, but this isn't the time. But they're not getting those books from the library. They're not getting those books from the school library.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What are your hours now? What are your work hours? And have those changed? What were your work hours last year, your contracted work hours last year? And then tell me your work hours now and what the word contract means now.
That's a hard one for me because I think last year we got out at 3:45.
From what time?
From 8:25 or 8:30 to 3:45. Now we're expected to be on campus around 8:15, and then we get out at 4:25. The students are released at 4:25. We have to be there until 4:45, except on there are two things. We have staff meetings weekly, and so we have to be able to be there for about an hour and a half, and then we also have a duty every week that's about 90 minutes. It's about 90 minutes. I think
90-minute duty?
It might be 80 minutes or something, but I know mine was from like at one point it's from like 7 to like 8:20.
7 a.m. in the morning, so you had to get to work at 7 a.m. instead of.
And so then it got moved to 7:30 because the buses don't get there at that time. But technically, we were supposed to be there, from like 7 to like to the time that the bell rings to watch my specific station. So yeah,
I'm
they're
looking
allowed
at
to
you
give
crazy
us,
because I'm looking like this.
yeah, they're allowed to give us the extra duty. So and I'll have to go back and fact check myself, but it's somewhere between 60 and 80 minutes. I will say that I struggle with my duty. I have gotten a lot of messages, but I think it's because the workload is so much that being to school at like 7:30 is difficult. Like with the stress and everything,
Right.
It's difficult. So that's the only reason why I'm kind of like sketchy on it, because I have kind of abandoned my post, and we'll be in trouble for that. But I need to be. It's like I have to. It's like, do I want to get in trouble for not being in a spot that, like, because my specific duty, no one is there.
Right.
I'm supposed to ensure that students don't try to enter through that to that section. So I would say I'm gonna get in trouble for that, but I have to decide, like, do I want to be there at 7:00 in the morning, or do I want to be able to show it for my students and teach every day? And that's becoming difficult. So
Okay, so now let's move in to talk about that, because two more small things before I move in to talk about you. There was an article that came out in the Chronicle. I keep referencing the Chronicle to everything because the Chronicle is that girl.
Yeah.
But the Chronicle made an article with your superintendent speaking about how there was no longer a such thing as contracts. One big thing that teachers stand on, where I've been, is Bookie, my contract is from 8 to 4:30. 4:30, I'm out the door with the buses. I'm gone.
Right.
Talk to me after I'm not on contract. Don't talk to me. There was an article where your superintendent was very vocal about that is no longer a thing. You work when we tell you you work. If your hours are what we say your hours are going to be, there's work that needs to be done, and it's going to require you to work after your contracted hours. So, and then about maybe 2-3 weeks ago, there was a campus in your school district that randomly had this meeting at 6:30, 7:00, and the principal was like, everybody needs to be on Teams at this time, and I'm like, it's after hours. And so people from that campus that were sending me that text message or sending me screenshots of the text message, I'm like, wait, the message came to y'all at like 5:30, 6:00 or something randomly like that. And then they're expecting you to drop whatever you're doing and be on Teams. And the principal was like, the meeting is mandatory. And I'm like, what if another person, because we're poor, we're at another job, what if you're doing something with your kids? Like, how can they demand that of you? And it's like, it's NES.
Right. That's the thing. It's NES. So it's been like that since the beginning. Like we will get a announcement. That's the biggest thing. I'm gonna tell you two things that I started to understand. Like, oh, we're really in some trouble. If I take off, right? Like if I want to take a day off, it says 7.75 hours. That's what I'm taking off, 7.75 hours, because that's how many hours we're supposed to be contracted to work, right? Contracted. But if you count from 8:15 to 4:45, like that is more than 7.75 hours, right? We used to use a time clock, right? A time stamp. But now we are not logging our hours in any other way besides a notebook that is used supposedly for safety reasons. But what they're really doing is they're going through and it's like, oh, you were late? Well, then you need to come upstairs, sign a paper saying that you were late. And if this happens, like you get this much docked off for your pay. After this around the time, like it's a dock. So the sign-in sheets are really used punitively, and at a certain time, the books are taken up.
And you can't sign
and you can't sign in unless you go upstairs, right? And then in the afternoon at 4:45, the books are put back down. There's no time clock. I could just put my finger, sign out. Whatever you do with it is what you do with it. No, like the books are so when we talk about the micromanaging and the surveillance, the high level of surveillance, right? We don't have any per se contract hours. So since the very beginning of the school, we might get an email if we're lucky, right? But usually it's an announcement made that says like, hey, like we're having a meeting, it's mandatory at this time, or there's an emergency meeting at this time. That has happened several times. And I myself have gotten into a sticky situation because of that. They called the meeting at the last minute. At that point, my ride was there to pick me up in my ride, with my children in tow, and something happened on campus. And I'm like, hold up. Like we're having this meeting, but my children are outside in the midst of this, and whatever's going on, and it's like being ignored, So I have to choose between like my children would not have been here had this meeting, happened on time.
Was that a situation?
Go ahead.
where I'm sorry, was that a situation? I'm trying to combine all the stories that I get from teachers all over the place. Was there like an emergency lockdown that happened and they didn't tell y'all that the emergency lockdown happened? They coded it or painted a picture like, oh, we're just having a meeting. But there was actually a real live emergency going on.
In real life emergency going on outside of the meeting.
Was that, if I may say, was that the shooting that happened across?
So it was the day after the shooting, but yeah. So we thought we had an
Everything's
emergency
coming together
meeting in the morning. The day after the shooting, the shooting happened. There's a store that's nearby, so there was a shooting, and we had an emergency meeting
With
in the
two
morning.
students.
Yes, and so the meeting that we had in the morning, we knew it was to like say like, hey, this is what's gonna happen. This is how
Right.
we're gonna deal with backpacks. And in my mind, I was like, well, I thought we already had a policy for backpacks. Like there were no clear this new policy has like this is not a thing. We've already had this policy. But it was to teach us how to handle it and teach us what to tell the students, to instruct us on how to inform the students. And so this is the day after the shooting. And so that afternoon, an emergency meeting was called. And so we thought like we were going to get more details on how to proceed forward, how to protect the students. But that's not what the meeting was about. The meeting was about like how to do turn-in talks and what to expect if someone came into our classroom.
As far as from upper admin.
As far as from upper admin and like we
hell?
were
We just had a
practicing
shooting.
turn-in talks, right?
Can I
And,
ask a dumb question? Don't say that there's no dumb
Probably-
question
listen.
because baby, we teachers, we know that there's dumb
Listen.
questions. But here's a dumb question. And I'm thinking your campus specifically. I'm thinking other campuses that I've talked to or teachers from other campuses that I've talked to in specific neighborhoods or certain neighborhoods. When that shooting happened with those two students, do y'all have a crisis team in HISD that comes to campuses and speaks with students when they have experienced trauma in the neighborhood or trauma that involves their classmates or their teachers even, that a team comes out and says, hey, there are 8 of our top counselors from the school district here. If you got this happened, unfortunately, because we have to notify parents that this happened and you may see some changes in your student. We have a crisis intervention team on campus if your student wants to come and talk to somebody. Is that service available at your campus or at your campus?
so let me say one thing. We've had 2 shootings.
Yes, I think
so-
more than that. Or
Well,
two
but I'm just saying
Yeah.
like what happened right by the campus. So the first one that we were talking about happened like the second day of school. We did have one recently involving 2 students and or involving a student. And with that specific shooting, yes and no. There are crisis teams available. We
Yes.
are told that there are crisis teams available. Like whether or not they're just visible is questionable. And then for me, we're told that if a student needs something, send them there. But we're not necessarily doing needs assessments, if that makes sense. It's business as usual. And then if I see a student that might seem off, right, then I'm supposed to send them. But that's to me it has not been the most effective way to triage trauma by just sending students. If
I can't even get because I could not imagine, and this is where I always talk about teacher privilege, right? Because teachers can easily get on TikTok or on Instagram and YouTube and say, oh, my school is this, my school is that. And sometimes when I talk to teachers who don't have even the things that we have at my campus, I am befuddled. I'm mind blown because I'm just like, my God, I could not imagine being at a campus where they don't stop the world because a crisis has happened.
Hold up, time out. Stop the world.
No,
It was never even, there was no, on my campus, there was not even an announcement made. And students were hurt. Students were like, can we get a moment of silence? Can we mention this
Our
person?
classmate just
like
died.
our classmate
Well, the
died.
last student, the classmate passed away.
The classmate passed away. So students,
This was like 2-3 weeks ago.
and they were asking, and and I didn't hear this, so this is not a direct quote, but a student came to me and said, hey, like, I don't know what to do because I asked our principal, and our principal said, like, we just want to get things back to normal. But no announcement was made. Like, we recognize this has happened, right?
Did a letter go out to the community?
So it went out.
I'm confused.
It didn't go out. So it didn't go out the same day. It went out the next day, like toward the evening or something like that. Like, so, like, things don't happen like right then. They happen way after the fact.
Oh,
you know?
at least that happens on your campus, because like even for our campus, we have a counselor, and my counselor is amazing. But she cannot be a counselor because she's also this, she's also
Yeah.
that. So we have students who have episodes.
Right.
And when I can see, oh hey, you can ready to have episodes, let me go call the counselor. But guess what? Now the counselor is watching this classroom, or the counselor's doing this. So even though we know certain kids have episodes, again, no shame in it. I cannot always go and say, can you come with this, because that counselor has now been used for X, Y, and Z. So even though you might have the staff on campus, they're not been able to be in whatever their actual role is. So even if there's a kid in my class, I mean, we have students whose parents have died, because life is just life.
Life is, yeah.
Oh, and we find out through the grapevine, hey girl, you know, so-and-so parent has died. Okay, let's send a message, us as teachers, let's get this in the message out. So if this kid is in class or one day sad or something has changed, now we know. But it's not like,
I know, I get you. I
It's
will
not
say
like-
our
yeah.
counselors, our counselors do.
Yeah,
an
no
amazing
shade.
job.
That's not
Yes.
the
Yeah,
them.
no,
Yeah,
no,
this is
our
just what
counselors do an amazing job. They do wear
Yes.
several hats.
But they don't get a chance
lot
to
of
be.
them are on duty
Yeah.
and doing their work.
Yes.
You know, I specifically have a counselor that sits outside my classroom every day doing several jobs, like not only making sure kids are outside of the hallway, but like working outside doing her work. So shout out to our counselors.
Yes,
I think
same
in
as
terms
mine.
of the communication,
Yeah.
though,
Yes.
you know, there was a BB gun on campus, and it happened first thing in the morning, like
Yeah, I
8
remember
something,
that.
you know, before 9 o'clock, and the information wasn't put out to that evening.
Yeah,
like
and
after
I think that was
5
after
o'clock.
so many people in
Right,
so many
had
social media
right,
posts.
had said something.
Yeah, because the
And
BB
so-
gun, it looked very handgunish. It was
Right.
not a regular
Yes,
old school
right.
BB gun that
No,
I
Because
No,
I've even,
not-
I saw
right.
that clip. I
Yeah.
was like, what? Did some parents get a phone call?
And so they did it. And so if we're talking about safety, I don't know if safety is the priority. That is what it said.
That's what it
right?
says. Yeah.
That is what it said.
Student
But
safety.
student safety, but safety is code for student compliance.
Ooh.
You know, student compliance is the utmost. So if we get the students to comply with these things, they will be fine. If we make them into quote, and this is a direct quote, discipline, you know, students of the school, then they will be fine. So discipline is somehow the goal. You know, compliance is the goal, but safety is not the goal.
So let's go to student compliance quickly, because your campus, other campuses, I've been getting videos and messages the students are sending clips and things like that in. What does compliance look like on your campus? I've seen some of your campus admin get physical with a student or with students when they are not simply complying with verbal directives. And I want to know how we get to a spot. Again, this is privileged mom, privileged teacher, right?
Right.
Where I am, you better not ever put your hands on a kid.
Right.
You better not. As a matter of fact, you better not even raise your voice at a kid.
Right.
It could not be. Where my kids go to school, if a teacher dare put their hands on a kid, the way we coming up to that school, the
Right.
way the NAACP, everybody in the county is coming, it would not happen. The community would not dare.
You know what's so strange though? You know, that you're talking about, I think, you know, like you say, you know, privileged mom, privileged teacher, same, right? But I think that protection is a privilege as well,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
And that in large part is determined by the community that you're in. Some students have the privilege of protection,
Yeah.
and some students do not. So I would say that my children in this district, like if you know a teacher, you know, got loud and you know said something in my child's face previously, and it was the teachers who reported it, you know, and that teacher was then removed, right?
Okay.
In this case, it really feels like by any means necessary.
Wow.
And as long as it's not documented, it didn't happen.
Yes. Even if you saw it with your own
Even if
eyes.
you saw it with your own eyes, or even if you experienced it with your own eyes, right? The goal is to desensitize, like compliance by any means necessary to desensitize. So I would say that at first the question was like, yeah, it starts off, and that's what we have to realize. We're in a world right now. We're in a little, you know, our district is a microcosm of like the larger issues in America right now. On my specific campus, right? The little compliances started off small. Walk to the right, you know. you're tardy. Sit in the cafe. Sit in the auditorium. They started off small, so it was small freedoms removed to the point where when a student got pushed down by a teacher for not handing over his mobile device, and I talked to that student, the student was like, "No, I didn't want to take it that far."
As far as explaining to them what their rights are.
As far as bringing their parents up there and like making a formal report about it, and it started to happen where it's like the picking and the compliance started really small to the point where now they don't even have rights to their own body, right? And it's looked at as normal because the shift wasn't instantaneous. It was a slow, gradual, pull up. So compliance for us looks like do what I say do, and there are no consequences for me, only consequences for you.
Yes.
Okay, and I always want to speak to what you're comfortable with, right? So I just want, as you say that, I want to say there are 2 specific students whose parents have reached out to me. I'm going to type their names in a memo, and you tell me if you're comfortable speaking generally about something that I heard from these 2 students. All right, so I'm going to just do that and let you see. Are these 2 parents of these students have said that they've been called in the back office after something has gone down, after a parent meeting has been held, and called in the back office by administrators that look like them, but they are not the top dogs in the building. They are just little puppies that are probably going to be on their way out real soon, and have said things to them like, "You a hoe ass N-word for not saying this," or "You a hoe ass N-word for saying this to a teacher or not having this teacher's back, even though this teacher has done you wrong, even though the system in this building is fucking you." Sorry to say that, but you a hoe ass, blah, blah, and only a man will do this, and if you a real, you'll do blah, blah, blah.
I've had students and parents tell me that.
Okay.
I've had students and parents tell me that. I can't say I witnessed it, but
Okay.
I've had, and it's triggering.
It's triggering. Absolutely.
It's triggering. It's
Absolutely.
very triggering.
So when you talk about compliance, this is why I guess I'm so vocal about our parents having conversations with your kids about what's going on in school. Don't let them get in a car and say, "My day was fine," or "How was your day?" "Good." Don't let them stop at that, because there are real things going on that we won't even know. So when we talk about, I know off camera earlier, we were talking about parental involvement, and sometimes the parents just don't know whether they should be involved or not. They figure, well, if the school didn't call me, then it's not an issue, and I don't need to come up there. But no, there's an issue, because these people that look just like your son, these men that look just like your son, are calling them in back rooms and making them sign deals, making them sign over their freedom, or promising them prom in exchange for their freedom.
Right.
I just
it's that, I think.
Woo, I'm mad. I'm angry.
Yeah, no, that part for me has been like the hardest thing to witness, because when you come in and you look at a community, like nobody comes into education and looks at the community and says like, "Oh, I want to further like disadvantage this community," right? You might come in and say like, I need a job, but you don't come in and say like, "I want to further disadvantage this community." But I think sometimes we don't realize like how we do that through our actions and what the long-term impacts are on our students and our community, and how the community stays in a cycle because of this. And so for some of our parents,
I started shaking. I'm like, whoa, I'm pissed.
So for some of our parents, it's interesting because they send their children to school to get an education, right? And
to be protected.
And to be protected, right. And to be protected. It's that, to me, that's implied that the school is safe.
Right.
And that's why I have the biggest issue as the implication is that a school is safe. It's a place where learning happens, right? And true education, right, should lead to empowerment. It should not lead to fetters, right? It should not put children behind bars, even more whether they're metaphorical or literal. And as we see in a lot of these cases, the school to prison pipeline is real.
It's so very real.
It's very real. Like these instances, they disengage students. They make them very skeptical of a system that they had told is supposed to protect and serve. And they put them on alarm all the time and close them up versus open them up. And that's what education should do. So when you have parents, right, who want, right, they look at their children and they say, "Okay, I'm working my butt off, right? I'm working my ass off every single day, right? And I send my child to school. The idea is that like I have these relics that sort of epitomize or are metaphors of success. I have graduation, so I want my kids to have that cap and gown, right? I might not see them. I didn't get a cap and gown. I might not see them get a cap and gown, right? So I want them to walk across that stage.
So I'm complying too as a parent.
Right. So I'm complying as well. We're both. So I want my children to go to prom, right? Because for me, like seeing my daughter in a beautiful dress that I've never been able to wear, we know these days parents, the young ladies are coming out.
They stepping out.
They're stepping
out.
And
the young men too.
And the young men too. They're getting together to do something that I'm not trying to be funny, but like that they might not ever get to see again. And even if they will get to see it, they might not have saw it. The parents might not have saw it. I've never wore a wedding dress, right? So I want to see my daughter look this beautiful. I might not ever see this type of moment again. And even if it's not in the forefront, we know it's in the background because of the things that they put out, right? So these are these relics of success for our parents, and they have to grapple with what little things am I willing to give up? You know what I'm saying? To make sure this happens, and then eventually you have given up your whole entire child. Your child is no longer safe.
Yep.
So it's hard. It's really hard to watch.
So when we talk about, I made a video the other day about us getting in the room. Like we're in the room, we're at the table, right? Now what are we doing with our seat at the table? And I made that video because speaking to a parent in the district whose kid is going through some disciplinary things that are unfortunately leading to criminal charges, outside of that. But because this kid is a kid with a disability, they have to go through a process, right? Whether we like it or not, whether people agree with it or not. We as adults have due process. Children they have their due process as well, and they are entitled to their due process. And so I'm talking to the mom and I'm asking her questions, right? So the first thing that stuck to me in my mind when I'm asking this mom these questions is a lot of the terminology I'm using, she's unaware of, right? And that's a whole different podcast in itself. So now I'm realizing, okay, I need to change the way that I'm speaking to her, and I want to make her understand, not dumbing it down, right? Because the mom was intelligent. I'm not saying that, but the mom was unaware of school terminology,
right?
And so, but if educators are educators like I am, these are things that parents should be aware of. These are terminology. This is a process that your baby is involved in. These are terms that you should be aware of, right? So clearly, in my mind, I'm already thinking every time you come sit down at that table, they're talking over your head. Yeah, that's the first thing that comes to mind, right? And so I asked the mom, a couple of acronyms. Give me some papers. These are things that I need to see because I know that these things should have happened. Let me see. What the mom gave me that she was getting by the school was disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Because I said, what educator, what individual sat down in a meeting and did this legal thing with this parent, and you could tell it was rushed. Boom, 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 get out of here. Or do you agree? And the parent's gonna say, I guess I agree. Right. And sign off because I don't want to look stupid at this table. Right? And in a sense, my kid did do what y'all saying my kid did, and I'm like, that's not even why we're here. Yeah, we know, but you still have rights, and your kid still has rights.
Your child is a person still.
And I'm looking like, oh my God, if I were an attorney, I would eat this up and I would own that school because I know like hell y'all didn't do this to my client. So some of these things that are being done by our own people. So when we talk about when you get your seat at the table, what are you going to do with your seat at the table? And I realize that right now, a lot of administrators are under pressure from the superintendent and from the executive directors and from the area supervisor. Well, y'all got all these damn titles in this district. Right. But from all these people. So people are under pressure to perform, right? But they are being so under pressure to perform that they're doing our kids a disservice. And I'm looking at the counselor, not a counselor on your campus. I'm just saying in general, a counselor. I'm looking at the LSSP. I'm looking at 504 coordinators. I'm looking at special ed or art facilitators. And me, when people tell me names, baby, I'm going to go Google. I'm going doing my Googles, and I'm like, wow, y'all all look like me. Right. These students all look like you. Why would you do that? Why would you not be that person at the table that says, you know what? I'm the person on this campus that's designated as the person to make sure that these students' rights are being met. Why are you not doing that? Why are you being so, and I hate to use this word, but the only word I could think of when I look at this paperwork is lazy. Sorry.
And you know what? I really believe, I believe that laziness is a myth, right? I don't think people intend to be lazy, right? I think that like we do jobs that are not our passion, right? I think that we do things out of compliance, and then I think sometimes we do things that we're not necessarily the best educated to do, and it reflects on what we see. But what I will say is that on my campus specifically, the sense of urgency is real, and we have to. That's a whole nother conversation about how sense of urgency is rooted in capitalist culture. And so when you put that sense of urgency out there, things get skipped over. People go into tunnel vision and they forget to cross their T's and dot their I's. And so I look at my admin. I know the people that support me specifically. I see them running around like chickens with their haircuts, so I'm trying to check the boxes. But then at the same time, that capitalist culture means that like I need this role to like to supplement my life, to make sure that I can afford my life, or get to where I need to be. And so then people that look like us, these color people, we become I'm a firm believer that racism is systemic. There's interpersonal prejudice, right?
Absolutely.
But we become the biggest perpetuators of like a racist system, right? So we cannot be racist, but we perpetuate racism. We're a tool. We're one of the best tools. If I put people that look like you, they could speak the language. You know what I'm saying? They can get you to do what you have to do. And here's my goal. The idea is that we are not like you. You are like us. So you need to conform and you need to comply, and you need to ensure that you are on this track and it's tied to your livelihood. You know what I mean? It's very much tied to your livelihood. So then you get a lot of people saying, what am I willing to give up to have this? And you would be surprised at what people are willing to give up. One, because they want to have, they need the capital, right? That's why I say sense of urgency is rooted in capitalism. Like the best thing you could do in a situation like what we're in is what I'm doing, which is rest. They say when you're held captive, right? The first thing you're supposed to do is rest. So that when your captor, right, falls off, you're able to think clearly, right? So for me, I got pushed into a corner and I'm like, oh, I need to rest because I'm falling off my game, so I'm resting. But some people tie their blessings to man, right? And when your blessings are tied to man, you do what man says. You're eating out of his hand. And then you have children who have IEPs where it's like it's being sign, and like nothing is being double checked. Nothing is checked about the child. We forget that there are paradoxes. Like this child may have done a thing, and at the same time, I might have played a part in it because I did not do what I needed to do to begin with to prepare this child for success. And if that's not what we're doing, then why are we in education?
So now, and I know we gotta cut this part short because you said something and it's triggering all kind of things in my mind because when I look at these two babies whose names that I showed you, I immediately know that they're athletes, right? Yeah. And one of the biggest things, and as a mother of athletes, all three of my children, I'm always vocal about the people that use our kids as tools to further their success. Yep. And when things, when they're done using our kids, and I'm going to say using because that's exactly what's happening. When they're done using our kids, they throw them out to the wolves and there's no more protection. But when you were using them,
right,
I'm stepping in, I'm protecting you, I'm doing everything I need to do for you because I need you.
Because I need you.
I need you. I need you to be a notch on my coaching resume. Right. I need you to bring income into the school, into the district on a Friday night or what have you. But now that the season is over and I have no more use for you, good luck, Charlie. You're on your own. And so I would love to hope that that's not a thing with some of the not just these two babies, but any other baby that a parent reaches out to me about. And I would love to hope that that's not a thing, but I know it's a thing, right? And it's a thing because we do have adults that are not in it for the best reasons. And then we also have these adults that are under pressure. Like y'all are literally not given the space to have empathy for these children with the way that your systems are set up, with the way the NES is set up. There is no relationship building. There is no rapport building. There is no empathy. There is no sympathy. There is 9:04 to 9:10. This needs to be done.
Yeah, I hear you, and I want to say the thing that I disagree with is that like nobody has to give you the space to have empathy. Empathy is something that you have or you don't have, right?
Yeah.
Empathy is not like, oh, today you're a person and tomorrow you're not, right? Based on how I feel. Empathy looks at a person's circumstances, right, and considers how they can best be supported. And it's similar to a doctor, right? Like a doctor doesn't get to choose, oh, today I want to use my techniques to save the patient, tomorrow I don't. Like, it's a thing that when you sign up for a job, like you have people's literal lives in your hand, right? And it might not be like a surgery table that you're working on, right? But you're working on their character.
Yeah.
You're working on their futures. You're working on where they're going to go. You're teaching them discipline and you're teaching them support. And that's not something that should go away unless you're working at a place that's a corporation, right? And then your students are the products, right? They're the money, you know what I mean? They're the bodies, you know, and they're the machines, right? And when I hear things like that, it makes me realize how much schools are really just a continuation of slave machines, right?
Yeah.
Are we indoctrinating our children to like go out into society and have discipline and take punitive points, or, you know, pushing them into prison systems where they have to have discipline? Are we teaching them to be thinkers, to be people, you know? And so when you ask the question of like, you know, when you talk about empathy, it's something you either have or you don't have.
Yeah.
It's not something you should turn off and turn on.
I know
when
we
we're dealing with life.
We shouldn't turn it on and off, but what I'm seeing happening is that, like you said, capitalism, right?
Right.
I'm scared that I'm going to lose my job. And the way that they're doing things in your district, y'all's district, is that at least where I am and where I've been, they're going to ride you out until the end of your contract. Y'all are being, hey, bye, you can go. You can go now.
Yeah.
And so if I'm
go.
terrified of being told, if I'm a husband, and I got a wife, I got 3 kids, I got to pay for ABCD, and at any given moment, somebody can walk in and tell me, bye, have a good day. My empathy may get turned off a little bit. It's not that I want it to. It's in me, and I
we
feel
do
for
have
you.
to make hard choices.
Yes. And so, in my mind, I think of the kind of teacher that I am, and knowing you now that I've been talking to you, I hear that you're like a young me, like you're fiery, right? I don't give a fuck. I'm out. I'm out of fucks to give. I feel like doing what's best by children, period. Nobody's gonna come in and make me do wrong by children. I'm just not gonna do it. But if I'm a person that doesn't have that, hasn't built up that courage yet,
Right.
You may be able to come in and take away my empathy.
No, absolutely.
And like it's there, it's in me, and it's not
Absolutely.
that I don't want it to be in there, but I am terrified because you have come in and you've led by fear, you've led by intimidation, and now you're not giving me a choice. You backed me into a corner.
Absolutely.
And now I have to choose between doing right by this kid legally, or is my wife going to have her house paid for next month?
Right.
My children are in daycare. Am I going to be able to pay the daycare next month? Because you come in, I know 3 or 4 teachers right now that in the last 2 weeks that emailed me, HISD has told them have a nice day.
Yeah.
So,
And I
choices.
honestly fear that I'm next. I honestly fear that I'm next, and I'm okay. And if we're talking about it, it's like I give my all to my students. Like one thing that anybody who knows me knows, like we're gonna teach. I'm gonna teach. Like, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna teach my babies. If something happens, like I'm going to change the lesson to reflect what's going on. Because as teachers, that's what we're supposed to do. You know, I'm gonna educate them, and I'm also gonna give them the tools, right? But does that mean that I'm not scared? I am, right? Mostly scared that if I move out the way, then who's going to take up the torch, right? And also I have to realize that, you know, and I hate to be that person, but it's like, remember Emma was like, I've been to the mountaintop, you know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna go over the edge with y'all, but I've led you guys there. And so for me, I've put enough fire under them that for if anything were to happen, right, then I would I have to trust that I'm gonna be okay, trust in my skills, trust in my gifts.
Someone has to be the sacrificial lamb.
Somebody has to, but I also don't see myself as a somebody does have to be well yes, like, and I also don't see myself as like a victim of this system, right? I do think that the system is a problem, right? But I don't see myself as a victim because, like you say, I've made conscious decisions to do certain things because I am in my right mind, and because I know that my silence won't save me, and it also will not save my students. And if I don't give them the tools, then who will? If I don't turn the keys over to their community, they will stay locked up, right? So I don't consider myself a lamb as much as I consider myself somebody who at every decision I have to make the decision of what's best for me, but also like what am I going to tell my kids? You know, I'm gonna have to talk to my kids about like what we're dealing with in HISD historic, whether
Yeah,
people realize it or not. We are
absolutely.
making
Yes,
history, right?
absolutely.
And so when it all,
Even with y'all being here, sitting here
right,
talking,
we're
yes.
making, and so some things will be told, and what is the story I'm comfortable with
Yeah.
telling my children?
What side of history
and
do you
so,
wanna be on?
but then I just want to acknowledge what you said, that like, yes, people are being pushed.
Yeah.
You know, I see people above me who I've looked at as great people, but I've seen them running around
Yeah.
and having to make difficult decisions, and like also trying to protect the me's in the building,
Yeah.
you know, while still not, you know, like not being told that they're not doing their job.
Yeah.
Difficult decisions are going to be made, and I feel like right now we're about to be at the end of year one, and I think that like under this regime, right, this regime, and I think people have to make a decision of what side they're on. And it just is what it is, you know.
I want to talk. I'm gonna put a pin in this session right here, but I do want to come back in another session and talk, because I can see emotion, and I see how this is heavily impacting you, and I do want to talk about how this has impacted you emotionally, mentally, physically, and then I do want to talk to y'all about the differences that you're seeing on your campus as far as the teachers go, the students, the curriculum, what's being offered, all those things. So I'm gonna put a pin in this one and come back and talk more to y'all.
Okay.
All right.